Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast. Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at Plug Power, a company heavily involved in the hydrogen economy.
Right.
You've shared quite a bit of information with us on this, and
Yeah.
our mission today is to really try to extract some of the key insights and understand what's really going on with this company.
I think that's a great goal.
So we have a bunch of information on this. We have information covering recent developments,
Okay.
market impact, industry context, potential risks and opportunities, social sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
We have a recent stock price movement as well.
Okay.
We also have a company overview, and we have some recent performance data, including some stock volatility, some financial health of the company, some red flags and strengths, market sentiment, competitive positioning, and future outlook.
Wow, that's quite a bit of information.
It is, yeah. And then to top it all off, we have a due diligence report as well. Yeah. And it's pretty detailed and touches on financial metrics, business and industry factors, management and governance, valuation and risk. And then it just has some additional context like peer comparison
Got it.
and recent news.
Okay.
So why don't we kind of unpack all of this and really try to get a clearer picture of what's going on with Plug Power.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in.
So maybe we can start by talking about some of the positive developments and strategic moves that the company's made recently.
Sure. So one that really stands out is this project Quantum Leap.
Okay.
It's really ambitious. They're looking at $150 to $200 million in annual expense reductions.
Wow.
It's a big number, yeah. They're going to be doing this through a few different ways. Workforce reductions, for one.
Mm-hmm.
They're also going to be consolidating facilities, and they're really focusing on managing their capital expenditures.
That's smart.
Yeah, I think it's a recognition that they need to really get those costs under control.
Yeah. And I think looking at some of the financials later, we'll kind of see why that's probably really important.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the other things that kind of stood out to me is this new executive compensation program that they have,
Okay.
which allows executives to receive up to 75% of their comp in company stock.
That's interesting. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it definitely signals that the leadership has confidence
Yeah.
in the future of the company because, essentially their personal wealth is directly linked to the shareholder value.
Makes sense. And I guess it could also be a way to conserve cash in the short term, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Operationally, it seems like they're making some good strides with their hydrogen production capabilities.
Definitely. They're almost done with this new 15-ton per day hydrogen plant in Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's going to bring their total production capacity to 39 tons per day.
That's huge.
It is. Yeah, it's a big step for them.
Yeah.
It shows that they really want to, control more of that hydrogen value chain from the production all the way through to the delivery.
Interesting.
And, with more capacity, they can become a more reliable supplier,
Right.
which is really key for getting and keeping customers.
Yeah, for sure. And they're not just focused on North America either.
That's right.
One thing that really stood out to me was their collaboration with Toyota Material Handling Europe.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example of their technology being used in a major industry.
Yeah.
They're going to be bringing hydrogen-powered solutions to these logistics centers in France and Spain.
Okay.
And this isn't just a pilot program. This is like really integrating hydrogen into the core of European logistics.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for them.
Absolutely. They also participated in the Jefferies Power Utilities and Clean Energy Conference recently.
Right. What did you think about that?
Well, I think it's interesting because it seems like their presentation really highlighted their key areas of focus.
Yeah, like what?
Well, they were really talking about material handling, which we see with the Toyota partnership that's clearly a big area for them.
Mm-hmm.
They also talked about their electrolyzer technology, which they seem to think is a real advantage for them.
Right.
And then securing a reliable hydrogen supply.
Which makes sense because that's really the foundation of their whole business model.
Exactly. So, it seems like there's a lot of positive momentum on the strategic and operational fronts.
Yeah, for sure.
But when we start looking at the financials, it paints a little bit of a different picture.
Yeah, a little more complicated, right?
Yeah, it does.
So they reported revenue of $628.81 million,
Okay.
which is, pretty significant.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But they also had a net loss of $2.1 billion.
Yikes.
Yeah. And a negative earnings per share of $2.17.
Oh.
So not great.
No, not so good. And then when you look at the gross and net profit margin,
Yeah.
it's
They're Those are deeply negative.
Yeah.
We're talking negative 91.66% for the gross margin
Oh my goodness.
and negative 334.71% for the net profit margin. So that raises some serious questions about their cost structure.
Right, and their path to profitability.
Exactly.
So, I mean, those are definitely concerning figures.
Yeah, no doubt.
But on the other hand, it does seem like they have a pretty strong liquidity position.
Oh, it's true. They have over $200 million in unrestricted cash.
What?
And then they also have this pretty substantial Department of Energy loan guarantee
Oh, right.
for $1.66 billion.
That's a pretty big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up. I mean, it shows that the government has confidence in their technology and their potential,
Right.
and it gives them access to capital for these big infrastructure projects.
Like those hydrogen plants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And probably at better rates than they could get on their own.
Makes sense. So let's kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about how the market is reacting to all of this.
Okay.
The stock performance seems pretty volatile.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's declined by about 61% over the past year. It's down almost 17% in the last month. And over the last 6 months, it's fallen about 41%.
That's a lot of movement.
It is. I think it really just shows how uncertain the market is about the company's future.
Right.
And it's not really that unusual for companies in these emerging sectors.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have a lot of growth potential, but they also have a lot of risk.
Yeah, sure. For sure. But the sources are pointing to a recent uptick in the stock price.
Interesting.
What do you think might be causing that?
Well, I think it's probably a reaction to some of those positive announcements we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Things like Project Quantum Leap and the progress on the Louisiana plant
Okay.
and the executive compensation changes.
Yeah.
Those things are giving investors some optimism, even if there's still longer-term concerns.
That makes sense. So what are the analysts saying about all of this? And what about the online investor communities? What are they saying?
Well, the analysts seem to be cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
They like that the company's trying to cut costs and improve efficiency, but they're still not sure if or when they'll actually be profitable.
Right. Yeah.
And online investors are kind of echoing those same concerns.
Okay.
A lot of the discussion is around the financial losses and the increasing competition.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about Plug Power's position in this, rapidly expanding hydrogen economy.
Yeah.
Where do they fit in all of this?
So they're really trying to position themselves as a comprehensive, clean hydrogen solution provider.
Okay.
They want to build an entire ecosystem, from the production and the storage of hydrogen to the delivery and the energy generation.
That's ambitious.
It is, yeah. And they have a pretty broad footprint across the value chain.
And what are some of the key product offerings that they have that are helping them do this?
So they're really focused on fuel cells.
Okay.
They have their GenDrive system for material handling equipment and their Progen line for things like heavy-duty vehicles, potentially.
Okay.
And they're also developing electrolyzers and hydrogen liquefiers.
So they're targeting some pretty significant applications for their technology.
Yeah, they're looking at on-road electric vehicles
Mm-hmm.
in certain niche applications like delivery trucks.
Okay.
They want to provide clean power for supply chain logistics.
Mm-hmm.
And they even have stationary power solutions, for backup power and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a pretty diverse portfolio.
Yeah, and it seems like their leadership in electrolyzer technology and their investment in hydrogen infrastructure is really giving them a competitive advantage.
I think so. It's definitely setting them apart.
Speaking of competition, who are some of their main rivals?
So there are a lot of players in the hydrogen space now,
Uh-huh.
but some of the big ones are Ballard Power Systems
Okay.
and Fuel Cell Energy. Those are two that have been around for a while.
Okay.
And as the market grows, we're going to see more and more companies coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably even from some adjacent industries.
Yeah, I think so.
So let's talk about the future. What's the outlook for Plug Power and what should we be paying attention to?
So they're projecting revenue of $850 to $950 million for 2025.
Okay.
And that's a pretty big jump from where they are now.
It is, yeah. And then their longer-term target is even more ambitious.
Yeah, they're aiming for $3.75
Billion.
billion by 2030.
Wow.
But to get there, they're going to have to improve their cash flow and their operational efficiency.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think those hydrogen production facility expansions are going to be crucial.
Okay.
We need to watch how those are progressing.
And what about some of the challenges that they might face in the future?
Oh, there are definitely challenges.
Yeah.
I mean, the regulatory environment is still evolving.
Right.
Any changes in policy could have a big impact on the company.
Absolutely.
And then there's the competition. It's definitely going to increase as the market matures.
Right.
and the broader economy. That's always a factor.
Yeah, of course.
Analysts are still expecting them to have quarterly losses for a while.
Okay.
So profitability is still a big question mark.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So let's kind of recap and summarize the key strengths and potential red flags.
All right, so the red flags, those net losses, those negative margins,
Yeah.
the stock volatility.
Definitely areas for caution.
Yeah, but they also have some strengths.
Yeah.
They're a leader in this emerging hydrogen economy.
Right.
They have a diverse product portfolio.
Yeah.
They have strategic partnerships. And they're taking steps to improve their efficiency.
Right.
So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it really is. So why should anyone listening to this care about Plug Power?
I think Plug Power is a great example of what it's like to invest in these new clean energy technologies.
Okay.
It's high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
And they're trying to grow really fast in this new market, but they're also trying to control their costs and become profitable.
Right.
So it's a tough balancing act.
Absolutely.
And it's a good lesson for investors who are thinking about getting into this space.
I think so. So looking at all this information, it seems like Plug Power is really making some big moves to become a major player in this hydrogen economy,
Yeah.
especially with their focus on cutting expenses and increasing production.
Uh-huh.
But we can't ignore those financial losses and the stock volatility.
Right. And it makes you wonder, can they really make all these changes and become profitable?
Yeah, that's a big question. We hope this has given you a better understanding of Plug Power's current situation and their future prospects. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe, like, and comment. And let us know what other topics you'd like us to explore in future deep dives. Thanks for listening.